I'm taking on Tom from Golden Goal Fantasy Football as we give our predictions for FPL Players Prices for the 23-24 season. In today's video we'll be going over the top 10 point scoring goalkeepers from last season. So kicking off at number 10 it's Jordan Pickford. Now this is a player I'm torn on, because while Everton have performed poorly throughout the entirety of the campaign, they did look stronger defensively under Sean Dyche towards the end. I think Pickford will remain at 4.5 million. I was considering giving him a 5 million price tag because of the number of bonus points and saves he'll probably pick up in the coming season, but I don't think Everton have done enough to suggest they'll keep a decent number of clean sheets, having conceded 57 times last year. Over to Tom from Golden Goal Fantasy Football to see what he thinks.
Jordan Pickford, on paper, I think he's a really good goalkeeper, should certainly still remain England's number one. He saved Everton's bacon on a number of occasions, penalty saves and just last-ditch, last touch saves. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. He makes saves bonus, but he plays for Everton, so for me, I don't think he's going to be making his way into my team anytime soon. And to be honest, he was priced at 4.5 million. For this season, I think next season it's going to be the same again, so 4.5 million is my prediction for Pickford. Fabianski, I feel like he didn't quite have the season he did last year. Not necessarily his fault. He was priced at 5 million. I think West Ham sort of rose above a relegation scrapper last season into sort of a mid-table team, but obviously they retracted a little bit. Who knows how Areola is going to fit into that team next year? I don't really know the goalkeeping situation at West Ham. We'll see. I think it's a bit of a tussle as to who's going to be first choice and who leaves this summer. I think one of them will actually leave. But for me, Fabianski, I think he's going to drop by 0.5. 4.5 million is my prediction for him.
At 38 years old, I'm not sure if Fabianski will be West Ham's first choice keeper going into next season, but whether he starts or not, I think we're going to see a price fall for the Hammers keeper this year in FPL from 5 to 4.5 million. Although David Moyes' side finished the campaign relatively strongly, they did spend plenty of the season hovering around the bottom 3 in the table, and they just haven't looked themselves since they obtained a European spot in the 21-22 season. They no longer look defensively airtight, and I think that will continue when the Premier League gets underway in August. Aston Villa went from down the bottom of the table to finishing in a European spot under Unai Emery, and you just have to applaud them for their performances in the second half of the season. Between game week 25 and game week 33, Martinez kept 7 clean sheets in goal, and he ended up returning in a similar way to his breakthrough season in 2021, where he finished on 186 FPL points. Despite a strong finish to the season, I think Martinez will remain at 5 million for the next season, and my early prediction is that he'll be the best goalkeeper in the game at that price. Tom, what do you predict for this one?
Well, Martinez, the World Cup winning penalty shootout hero. For me, I think with Unai Emery as their boss, Villa are only going to get better and better defensively, and with Diego Carlos in their squad as well, I think he's an excellent centre-back, and we'll start seeing him more in the team next season as well. For me, I think they got Martinez's price right at 5 million, and I think he's going to stay the same price this year, so 5 million for Martinez. Oh, Leno, I'm just thinking really about him. I feel like Fulham are just not average. They are just sort of average, not going forwards, but defensively just like mid-table really. And I feel like he's obviously the first choice nailed keeper for them, but I haven't seen anything too dramatic defensively from Fulham this year. So I feel like he's just going to be a middle-of-the-road goalkeeper. 4.5 million seems a sensible price for him.
I think I read somewhere that Leno was one of the top keepers for preventing expected goals in the Premier League this season. And while Fulham have had a fantastic campaign, they did drop off a bit towards the tail end of the season. To me, Fulham were far more impressive in the goal-scoring department than they were defensively, and after 38 matches, Leno kept a total of just 8 clean sheets. I don't see much changing going into next year, and for that reason I think the Fulham goalkeeper will remain at 4.5 million. I do think the Cottagers will have some good FPL assets when the season kicks off, but I'll most likely dodge their defensive players entirely. Despite finishing second in the table, Aaron Ramsdale only managed to grab the 6th best spot for goalkeepers in FPL. I personally think one of the main reasons for this is because Arsenal have controlled so many matches they've played in this season, and most of the play has been down the other end of the pitch. Arsenal have been prolific in creating goal-scoring chances and converting them, and while they've defended well at times, they have conceded numerous sloppy goals. My guess is that Ramsdale remains at 5 million in FPL, but I do expect to see price rises for some of the Gunners' back line. Let's hear what Tom thinks.
Now, with Arsenal's amazing season, I know they didn't win the title, but I still think they had an unbelievable season compared to expectations. He started the season at 5 million. He's actually dropped by a couple points where I think people have been selling him to hop on double game week goalkeepers for the end of the season. I really think, though, he's going to be priced similarly to the likes of Alisson and Edison as one of the top goalkeepers in the game, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a rise for Ramsdale to 5.5 million. Now, for Jose Sarr, I actually think his place is in jeopardy too alongside Edison. As a Bristol City fan, they signed Dan Bentley in January, and I know Dan Bentley to be a really good goalkeeper, and he had an unbelievable performance at Old Trafford against Man United. So just generally as well, I think Wolves have retracted a bit defensively and started conceding a lot more goals than they have done. So I think we're going to see a drop for Jose Sarr, something like 4.5 million.
Despite Wolves' poor campaign, Sarr has managed to make it into the top 5 scoring goalkeepers in FPL for back-to-back seasons. He came into the 22-23 season priced at 5 million, and I reckon he's going to hold on to that price tag for the coming year. The main reason for this is because Wolves tend to set up with a solid back line, they slow games down, and they're usually involved in low-scoring affairs, especially at home. Their deep defensive line allows teams to take shots from distance, and allows Sarr to make plenty of relatively straightforward saves. I think most of us expected Newcastle to improve on previous seasons under new ownership and new management, but I don't think many predicted a Champions League spot for the Magpies. Newcastle have been one of the best defences in the division this season, conceding an average of less than a goal a game. Pope has been a fantastic addition to the Newcastle back line, and he ended the 22-23 FPL season as the most popular goalkeeper among fantasy managers. I don't expect Pope to pick up as many save points and bonus points as other keepers in the upcoming season, but I do expect him to get a price rise to 5.5 million.
I think for me, Nick Pope has been one of the best goalkeepers of the 22-23 season, and I think it's going to remain that way next year as well. I think Newcastle are only going to get better with another transfer window. I don't see them replacing Pope. I think one of his weaknesses is with his feet, and I think if Newcastle really want to challenge for titles, they have to get a goalkeeper that's better with his feet. I think Pope's place, though, is safe for next season, and yeah, the elite level that Newcastle are playing this year, I think we could see him priced at 5.5 million. David De Gea, my absolute hero for the run-in, and on the final day, he actually saved a penalty as well. I'll never forget that because that helped me win some money in some other fantasy football games. For me, though, I don't even know if he's going to be at United next season. I think it's a real 50-50 as to whether he stays or goes, to be honest. I think if Man United are going to challenge for titles, like I said with Pope, I think he's going to have to, they're going to have to find a goalkeeper that's better with his feet. For me, though, David De Gea, I think he's going to be priced similar to what he was last year. I'm going to go for 5 million.
Other than the odd mistake this season, I think De Gea's had a good year in goal, and Man United have looked defensively very solid, especially at Old Trafford. Although they had a slow start to the season, United did manage to gain ground following the World Cup, and eventually beat Newcastle to third spot in the table. I actually think De Gea should get a price rise to 5.5 million this season. He's a goalkeeper who makes plenty of saves, plays in a good defence, and he's just won the Golden Glove for keeping the most clean sheets in the league. Alisson is someone who's been delivering FPL points on a consistent basis for our teams, having returned 176 and 162 points respectively in his last 2 seasons. Although Liverpool had what could only be described as a forgettable year, Alisson still managed to finish as the second top scoring keeper in FPL, so there's definitely value in going for the Liverpool keeper. Last season we saw FPL drop the price of some of the premium goalkeepers down from 6 million to 5.5 million, and I expect Alisson to return at that price when the game returns over the summer. Tom, what's your prediction?
I think Alisson on paper is the best goalkeeper in the Premier League, and I say that as a Man United fan. I really do think he's absolutely awesome, unfortunately. He makes saves and, well, Liverpool haven't been amazing defensively this season, but they still have kept clean sheets. I think he's always going to be a solid goalkeeping option, and he's obviously going to be a premium goalkeeper. 5.5 million seems to be the price that FPL set for these premium keepers, and I think Alisson is going to fall in that category again. So 5.5 million is my prediction for him. David Raya, the top scoring goalkeeper of this season. Absolutely awesome, and I only owned him for a few game weeks. I missed out basically on all the points he scored because whenever he ended up in my team, he pretty much blanked. Yeah, good goalkeeper with obviously a combination of both saves and clean sheets, and only 4.5 million. I think he'll see a similar rise to what Martinez did. Remember when Martinez debuted in the Premier League, was 4.5 million, absolutely smashed it, and then got bumped up to 5 million. I feel like he's going to be 5 million next season.
David Raya has been exceptional this season. In FPL, he's finished on a points tally that isn't too far off of double what he scored in the previous 21-22 season. I personally think the addition of Ben Mee has worked wonders for Brentford's defence, and although they conceded 46 goals across the campaign, Raya still managed to finish in the top spot for FPL keepers. I wouldn't be surprised to see Raya continue to pick up numerous save and bonus points going into the 23-24 season, that is if he were to stay at Brentford. So for that reason I expect him to come in at 5 million. 5.5 million would be a stretch too far in my opinion. A special mention has to go to Ederson, who despite Man City winning the Premier League title, somehow didn't manage to finish in the top 10 for goalkeepers in FPL. I didn't go anywhere near the premium keepers this season, but I must admit I did have a laugh at all the Ederson troll comments online. While City are fantastic at controlling matches, they usually let in at least one sloppy goal per game, which sees Ederson either finish on 6 or 2 points in FPL. Having said that, I think he'll be the most likely defensive asset to start for City week to week when the season gets underway, so I would expect his price to remain at 5.5 million.
Oh, Ederson. I feel like owners of Ederson for the run into the season were just incredibly unlucky. The guy seemed to concede with every shot on target the opposition faced. They literally had one shot on target conceded every game, and the opposition scored. I think a worry with Ederson is that he actually gets replaced by Ortega next season. I mean, Pep's obviously likes to rotate his team, and we've seen Ortega start in the Prem. I actually think he's got a risk of starting. For me, though, I don't see any reason Ederson will change in price. I think he's going to be 5.5 million.
A massive thanks to Tom for joining me on today's video. If you haven't yet already, please go over and subscribe to the Golden Goal Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Tom makes plenty of quality content, and I'm sure he's got loads in store for you for the upcoming FPL season. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our other prize prediction videos. Once they're uploaded, they'll be available on the screen now. Thanks as always for watching guys, and I'll see you again soon.